All right, so India's just laid out its economic game plan for the next few years. But this isn't just some dry document full of numbers. No, it's being framed as a blueprint for creating what they're calling a developed India. So the big question is, what's actually in this thing? Let's dive in and break it all down.
Right at the very heart of this whole plan, you'll find this one phrase. It's pretty much the guiding star for everything. Viksit Bharat literally means developed India. But here's the key. It's all about pairing that massive national ambition with a promise that the growth will be inclusive. And this isn't just a catchy slogan, you guys. It's the core philosophy, the DNA that's driving every single policy we're about to look at.
So how are they going to get there? Well, they've boiled it down to this really clear three-part philosophy. The message is pretty straightforward. First, prioritize action over just, sitting on the fence. Second, push for real structural reform instead of just talking about it. And third, focus on policies that actually help people in the long run, not just what's popular for a minute. It's a very direct way of saying, we're here to get things done.
Okay, so let's start with that grand objective. You've got to understand, this budget isn't just about balancing the books for a single year. Think of it less like balancing a checkbook and more like a detailed roadmap, a step-by-step guide for this massive national project of becoming a developed nation. Of course, you can't build a skyscraper on sand, right? Same idea here. To get to that developed India goal, you need an absolutely rock-solid foundation. This blueprint is built on 5 key pillars: keeping growth humming along at around 7%, keeping a lid on inflation, managing the country's finances responsibly, and really pushing forward with those big, tough structural reforms to build economic strength for the long haul.
So the whole plan really relies on firing up 2 big economic engines to drive all this growth. Let's talk about the first one, a massive push in industry, with a laser focus on boosting manufacturing.
And when we talk about manufacturing, don't just picture old-school factories. This is all about a major technological leap forward. Think robotics, high-value electronics, and making the kind of complex goods in India that used to be imported. It's a really strategic shift toward modern advanced production.
And the approach is surgical. They're not just throwing money at everything. Instead, the budget singles out strategic, frontier sectors. We're seeing huge investments in critical areas like semiconductors, which are absolutely crucial these days, and biopharmaceuticals. And get this, there's even a plan to go back and revive hundreds of older industrial clusters to bring them into the modern age.
So how do you make all this happen? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is some pretty smart tax reform. It's kind of like a two-pronged attack. On one hand, the government is making it cheaper to import critical parts for things like aircraft or electronics, which fuels domestic assembly. On the other hand, it's making it easier for exporters, say in seafood or leather, to compete on the global stage. It's a classic push-and-pull strategy.
But manufacturing is only half the story. The second massive engine powering this vision is India's incredibly diverse service sector. And this covers just about everything, from healthcare and tourism all the way to the booming digital economy.
The strategy here is really twofold. Part 1 is about strengthening those core traditional services like healthcare and education for the whole population. But Part 2 is all about fully embracing the digital age, boosting the IT and creative sectors that have just enormous potential for global growth.
And these initiatives are super specific. The plan includes creating dedicated hubs just for medical tourism, training a huge new workforce of 150,000 caregivers, and this one is pretty cool, setting up creative labs in thousands of schools to nurture the next generation of digital artists, from animators to game designers.
Of course, these 2 powerful engines, manufacturing and services, can't run without a solid foundation. An engine needs a car and roads to run on, right? That brings us to the physical framework they need to grow, future-ready infrastructure. Which leads to a simple but profound question. If you're really going to build a developed nation, what does it actually take? What's the price tag on something like that?
And here's your answer. A staggering 12.2 lakh crore rupees, that's the public investment target for infrastructure. And let's be clear, this isn't just a number on a page. It's the financial backbone of the entire plan, a massive commitment to building the physical infrastructure for India's future.
And this chart really puts that number into perspective. It shows a dramatic, more than 6-fold increase in public infrastructure spending in just over a decade. This isn't just a one-off spend, it's a sustained, long-term strategy of using public investment to drive growth.
So where is all that money going? Into concrete projects that will transform how goods and people move across the country. We're talking new freight corridors connecting the East and West, high-speed rail, and a major push to use India's waterways for cargo, all while developing smaller cities.
Okay, so we've got the macro picture of engines and infrastructure in place. Now, the blueprint brings the focus right down to the human level. How does all of this actually empower the small businesses and the farmers who really are the backbone of the economy?
For the millions of small and medium businesses, the support comes in three key forms. First, access to capital through a dedicated growth fund. Second, making sure they get paid faster, which is mandated through a digital system. And third, giving them affordable professional help from so-called corporate mitras or corporate friends to help them handle all the complex paperwork and regulations.
The approach to agriculture is pretty similar. It's targeted and it's value-focused. So instead of broad strokes, you see dedicated programs for high-value crops like cashew and cocoa, a major push for fisheries, and support for the entire animal husbandry ecosystem. The key idea here is helping farmers move up the value chain.
So when you put all these pieces together, the big vision, the economic engines, the infrastructure foundation, and that sharp focus on people, you really start to see the full picture. It's a comprehensive and interconnected blueprint where every single part is designed to support the others in this journey towards a developed India.
But a blueprint is only as good as its execution, right? It's just paper until you build it. And that brings us to the final critical question. The plan is ambitious, the reform express is on the tracks, but will it overcome all the inevitable challenges and actually reach its destination on time? Well, that remains the ultimate test.